The battlefield was silent now. Smoke drifted across broken ground carrying the smell of metal and fire. The cries of war had ended hours ago, but the land still felt heavy with death. She knelt in the ashes, her armor cracked, her blade shattered. Her name was Kayla, once a proud warrior of the alien clans. Now she was nothing more than a prisoner of war. Her body ached, her heart burned, and her spirit waited for the final blow. She knew what humans did to enemies. Her people had told her many times, humans do not forgive, humans do not spare. They cut down all who stand against them. And yet, as she waited on her knees, she felt fear rise inside her chest. Not fear of death, she was a soldier, ready to die, but fear of the unknown. What if the stories were worse than true? What if humans did not kill quickly but slowly? Footsteps approached. Heavy boots pressed into the broken earth. She did not lift her head. She did not need to. She could feel the power in his stride. A human soldier was coming for her. The sound of metal scraped against its sheath. A blade. She closed her eyes. This was the end. The human stopped in front of her. Silence stretched between them. She waited, heart beating hard. She imagined the steel cutting through her neck. She imagined falling into the dirt, her body lifeless. But nothing came. Slowly, Kayla opened her eyes. The human stood tall, his armor dark with battle marks. His face was hidden by a helmet, but his eyes, yes, his eyes burned through the visor. Cold, steady, sharp as his blade. He held the weapon in his hand, raised and ready. She swallowed hard. Why was he waiting? Why not strike? The wind carried, dust between them. He stared at her as if searching for something. Finally, she whispered, voice broken, "Do it." Still, he did not move. His blade hung in the air, a frozen promise of death. Kayla's hands shook. She hated that. She wanted to look strong in her last moment. But the waiting was worse than the killing. Her people had told her humans were monsters. Maybe he wanted to watch her suffer in fear before ending it. She clenched her jaw. "Do it!" she shouted this time. The human lowered the blade a little, but still not enough to strike. Instead, he did something she did not expect. He reached out his hand. For a moment, Kayla thought he meant to grab her throat. She flinched, but his hand did not go for her neck. It landed on her shoulder. A touch. Firm. Heavy. But not cruel. Her eyes widened. A storm of confusion filled her chest. What was this? Why touch her? Why not kill her? She could feel the warmth of his hand even through the broken pieces of her armor. It was steady, grounding, almost gentle. Her breath caught in her throat. The blade was still in his other hand, but it hung at his side now. The promise of death was gone. Kayla stared at him. She could not believe it. "You? Why?" The human did not answer. His eyes stayed locked on hers, hard to read, yet not filled with hate. For the first time, she saw something she had never expected in a human warrior. Not anger, not rage, something else. Mercy. Her mind spun. No. This was impossible. Humans did not spare enemies. They never showed mercy. Her people's words echoed in her head again, but now they felt like lies. The silence between them grew heavy, louder than any battle drum. Her body trembled, but not from fear anymore. From something strange, something new. The soldier's grip tightened on her shoulder as if telling her, "You are safe. For now." Her lips parted. The only words she found were soft, broken, filled with shock. Why? Why spare me? The human still gave no answer. His silence was its own mystery. Behind them, the battlefield groaned as fires slowly died, leaving only smoke and shadows. Kayla realized her life was no longer in her own hands. She was bound to this human's choice, and that choice made no sense. The question twisted inside her chest, sharp as any blade. Why would a human show mercy? She did not know it yet, but this moment would change everything. The night was cold. Stars burned above the battlefield, sharp and distant like eyes watching from the dark. Smoke still drifted from broken machines, and the ground was littered with steel and bones. Kayla walked slowly, her hands bound with human rope. The human soldier led her forward, his step steady, his blade hanging at his side. He had spared her life, but she could not understand why. Every step made her more uneasy. She expected him to change his mind at any moment, to cut her down from behind. Her people had always said, humans lie before they kill. But he did not strike. He did not speak either. His silence was heavy, like a wall she could not see through. Her throat felt dry. Finally, she whispered, Why keep me alive?" The soldier glanced at her but gave no answer. His eyes, hard and calm, returned to the path ahead. That silence was worse than any blade. They reached a camp. Fires burned low, throwing shadows across the dirt. Other human soldiers were there, sharpening weapons, checking machines, and whispering in low voices. When they saw Kayla, their whispers grew louder. Their eyes turned sharp with hate. One soldier spat on the ground. "Why bring her here?" Another stepped closer, his hand on his knife. "She's the enemy. End her now." Kayla's heart raced. She waited for the first strike, but the one who had spared her, the human who held her rope, stepped between her and the others. His body blocked their path. His blade flashed in the firelight, not pointed at her but at his own comrades. The other humans froze. Shock rippled through the camp. "What are you doing?" one demanded. "She killed our men," shouted another. The soldier said nothing. His silence was like stone. The men cursed but stepped back. None dared challenge him further. Kayla's chest tightened. What was this? Why would he defend her against his own kind? Later that night, the camp grew quiet. Soldiers slept, weapons beside them. Fires burned low, leaving the air thick with smoke. Kayla sat near a post, her hands still tied. The rope cut into her wrists, but she barely noticed. Her eyes stayed on the man who had spared her. He sat nearby, sharpening his blade. The sound of steel against stone filled the silence. She studied him. His armor was scarred. His shoulders carried the weight of battle. His face, now free of his helmet, was sharp and tired. His eyes looked older than his years. She wanted to hate him. He was human, he was the enemy, but every time she remembered his hand on her shoulder, her chest felt strange. Finally, she whispered again, "Why me?" This time he paused. The blade in his hand stilled. He looked at her, and for the first time he spoke. His voice was deep, steady, carrying no anger. "You are not my enemy." Kayla froze. The words hit her harder than any strike. Not his enemy, but she had fought against his kind. She had killed humans. Her people had died at their hands. How could he say that? Before she could ask, voices rose in the distance, angry, sharp. She listened closely. Human soldiers were arguing. "She is dangerous," one hissed. "She should die now," another said. "If he won't do it, we will." Kayla's chest tightened. She looked at the man who had spared her. His face was still, but his eyes had changed. Sharp, ready, aware. Danger was close. The whispers grew louder. Shadows moved near the edge of the camp. She saw glints of steel in the firelight. Her breath quickened. They were coming for her, and maybe for him too. She met his eyes. For the first time, she saw not only mercy there, but something stronger. A silent promise. He stood, his blade gleaming in the night. The whispers stopped. The shadows waited, tense, ready to strike. Kayla's pulse thundered in her ears. Was he truly protecting her? Or was this part of some cruel game? The silence broke with the sound of a single footstep. The ambush had begun. The fire burned low. Only glowing embers lit the human camp now, red sparks rising into the night air. Most soldiers lay asleep, but Kayla did not rest. She sat with her back against a wooden post, her wrists still tied, her eyes sharp. She could hear them, whispers, voices moving through the dark, just outside the circle of firelight. "She's dangerous," one hissed. "She should be gone before morning," another replied. "Better to cut her throat now while he sleeps." Kyla's stomach tightened. They were talking about her. Her eyes flicked toward the one who had spared her, the silent soldier. He sat across the camp, not asleep, not even resting. His blade was in his hand, glinting faintly in the fire's dying glow. His eyes scanned the shadows. He had heard them too. The whispers grew bolder. "She killed our brothers. Why protect her? He's lost his mind. We end this tonight." Kayla's breath quickened. She was ready for death once before, but now it felt different. She was not kneeling on the battlefield anymore. She was sitting in the camp of her enemies, and yet, one of them shielded her. Why? She still had no answer. The soldier rose to his feet. The sound of his armor shifting was quiet, but every man in the shadows heard it. Silence spread, sharp as a blade. He spoke at last, his voice low but firm. "Stay back," the darkness answered with laughter. "Bitter. Angry. You protect her like she is one of us?" A soldier sneered, stepping closer. His face caught the firelight, hard, twisted with hate. "She is not human, she is nothing." Kayla's pulse raced. The soldier who spared her moved between her and the threat, his blade raised. "She is not my enemy," he repeated. The camp stirred. More soldiers rose from their beds, woken by the growing tension. Some looked confused. Others looked ready to join the attack. Kayla could feel the storm coming. Then it broke. A soldier lunged from the shadows, knife flashing. The protector met him head-on. Steel clashed in the night. Sparks burst. The camp erupted into chaos. Kayla struggled against. Her ropes, her hands burning as she pulled. She needed to be free, needed to fight, but the knot was too tight. All around her, humans shouted. Some tried to break the fight apart, others joined it. The sound of blades, fists, and boots filled the air. The man who had spared her fought like a storm. His movements were sharp, fast, precise. Each strike of his blade forced the attackers back, but they kept coming. "Traitor," one screamed. "You fight for her, not for us," another roared. Kayla's chest tightened. She watched as he fought alone, holding back men who had once been his brothers. Why? Why risk his life for her? The rope finally snapped. Her wrists burned, with pain, but she ignored it. She scanned the ground until her eyes caught a broken spear near the fire. She crawled for it, her body weak, but her will strong. A soldier spotted her and shouted, "She's free!" He rushed toward her. Kyla grabbed the spear and swung. The wood cracked against his chest, sending him sprawling. Her body screamed in pain, but her spirit flared alive again. She rose to her feet, standing beside the human who had spared her. For the first time, they fought together. The night roared with battle. 2 soldiers charged. The man's blade cut, one down, while Kayla drove the broken spear into the other's shoulder. Blood sprayed, the soldier cried out and fell to the dirt. More came. The pair moved back to back, their bodies turning as one. Every strike, every block, every step, they fought not as enemies but as allies. Kayla felt a strange fire inside her chest. She had fought many battles, but never like this. She trusted him. Trusted the man who should have been her executioner. The attackers slowed. Some hesitated, fear creeping into their eyes. They saw not a prisoner and her captor, but something else. Something dangerous. One soldier spat blood and shouted, "This is madness! She will kill us all!" Kayla gripped, her spear tighter. She looked at the man beside her. His armor was cut, blood streaked down his arm, but his eyes burned steady. "We stand," he said simply. The words hit her like thunder. Short, strong, unshakable. Together they pushed forward. The attackers broke. Some fled into the dark, others fell to the dirt. The camp was silent again, but not peaceful. The fire crackled weakly and the ground was wet with blood. Kyla's chest heaved. She leaned on the broken spear, her body trembling. The man lowered his blade slowly. He looked at the fallen, then at her. His eyes were unreadable, but she saw no regret in them. The other soldiers who remained stared in shock. None dared move. Closer, Kayla whispered, breathless. Why do this? They were your people. The soldier wiped blood from his blade. His voice was calm, steady, but colder than the night wind. My people forgot what they fight for. Kayla stared at him, her mind spinning. She wanted to ask more, to demand answers, but before she could speak, a distant sound rolled through the air, heavy footsteps, the rumble of engines. She turned her head sharply. Lights flashed on the horizon. Machines of war, moving fast, heading straight for the camp. Not humans. Not his people. Her people. The enemy was here. The ground shook. Engines roared across the horizon. The glow of alien war machines lit the night sky in burning red. Kayla's people were coming. She froze, her chest tight. These were the warriors of her clan, the ones she had fought beside, bled beside. Now they marched toward the human camp, weapons raised, engines rumbling like thunder. The human soldier stood beside her, his blade still dripping with the blood of his own men. His eyes narrowed, steady, unshaken. They are yours, he said, voice low. Kayla swallowed hard. Yes, they were hers. And yet, she no longer felt safe. The alien machines screeched to a halt around the camp. Soldiers poured out, their armor gleaming, their weapons ready. Their leader stepped forward, tall and fierce, his voice sharp as steel. Kayla, he roared, you live, and yet you kneel among humans? Kayla's breath caught. These were her people. They should have cheered at her survival. Instead, their voices dripped with suspicion and hate. She stands beside him, one spat. She fights with a human, another growled. Kayla's body tensed. She wanted to shout, to explain, but her voice felt trapped. The leader raised his blade toward the human soldier. Step aside, human. She belongs to us. The man did not move. His silence was his answer. Kayla's heart pounded. He was ready to fight her people. For her. The alien soldiers surged forward. Chaos exploded again. Kayla ducked as energy bolts sliced the air. Fire lit the camp. Human tents burned. Machines crumbled. Smoke swallowed the sky. Her people attacked, without mercy. To them, she was no longer a warrior, no longer a sister. She was a traitor standing beside an enemy. She grabbed her broken spear and fought, blocking strike after strike. Rage burned in the eyes of her attackers. Traitor, one shouted, swinging a blade at her head. She deflected and struck his leg, sending him crashing into the dirt. The human fought at her side, his movements sharp, ruthless, unyielding. Every strike of his sword dropped another soldier. He did not fight to win glory. He fought to keep her alive. Kayla's mind screamed. These were her people. But their blades did not hesitate. They wanted her dead as much as him. The leader charged at her, his weapon glowing red with power. Kayla blocked, the clash shaking her bones. His voice thundered, "You shame us all." Fighting beside a human? Her chest ached. "He spared me," she cried, but her words only fueled his rage. "Then you are no longer one of us," he roared, striking again. His blade cut her arm, pain tearing through her flesh. She staggered back. Blood spilled across her skin. The human soldier stepped in, blocking the next strike with his sword. Sparks burst as steel met steel. "Stay. Behind me," he said. Kayla's eyes burned. No, she could not hide. Not now. Together they pushed back, their blades flashing in the firelight. The battle was endless. Smoke, screams, and steel filled the night. Kayla's breath came heavy, her muscles weak, but she kept fighting. Bodies fell. Friends she once knew now lay lifeless in the dirt. Her heart twisted with every strike. And then, a scream. She turned, just in time to see the human soldier take a heavy blow. The leader's blade tore across his side. Blood burst from the wound. "No!" Kayla shouted. The man staggered, dropping to one knee. His face stayed calm, but his armor was torn, his body failing. The alien leader raised his blade again, ready to finish him. Kayla moved without thinking. She threw herself between them, her broken spear blocking the killing strike. The force shook her arms, but she held strong. Her people stared in shock. Their enemy, their hated human, was alive only because she protected him. "Kayla," the leader hissed, his voice dripping with venom. "You choose him?" Her chest heaved, her voice broke, but her words were clear. "He chose me first." The leader's face twisted with rage. "Then you will fall with him." The alien army surged again. Kayla fought like fire, but her strength was fading. The human soldier, wounded and bleeding, still stood at her side. Every strike he made cost him more blood. His steps grew slower, his breaths weaker. Finally, his knees buckled. He collapsed to the dirt. Kayla caught him, her arms wrapping around his broken body. His blood soaked into her hands, hot and heavy. She looked up. The alien soldiers circled, blades ready. The leader's eyes burned with triumph. Her people, her family, her clan. They no longer saw her as one of them. She was alone. Alone except for the man who should have been her executioner, the man who now bled for her. Her tears mixed with his blood as she whispered, "I will not leave you." The circle closed in. Shadows of blades rose above them, and in that moment, Kayla knew the next choice she made would decide both their fates. The night burned with smoke and screams. The circle of alien soldiers closed in, their blades ready to strike. Kayla's arms tightened around the human soldier as his body sagged against her. His armor was broken, blood pouring from the deep cut across his side. He should not have been alive. No human could stand after such a wound. Yet even as his strength failed, his eyes opened, steady and sharp, looking at her. "Run," he whispered. Kayla shook her head, her voice breaking. "No, not without you." The alien leader raised, his weapon high. His voice thundered across the battlefield. "Kill them both!" The circle moved. Blades glinted. Shadows fell. Kayla's chest tightened. She had no strength left. No weapon but her broken spear. Her people were too many. The human in her arms could not fight anymore, but she could not. Let him die, not here, not like this. She stood, lifting him with all her strength. His body was heavy, blood soaking her armor, but she refused to let go. With a scream, she swung the broken spear in a wide arc. The attackers flinched back for a heartbeat. It was all she needed. She ran. The human's weight slowed her, but she forced her legs to move. Past the fire, past the shattered tents, past the bodies of friend and foe. Arrows whistled through the night. Blades scraped against stone. Shouts of pursuit filled the air. Still she ran. Her people gave chase. But Kayla knew the ground better than any of them. She cut through the ruins, down into the black ravines where firelight could not reach. At last, the sound of pursuit faded. Only the soldier's ragged breaths and her pounding heart filled the silence. She lowered him gently against a rock wall, her chest heaving. His face was pale, sweat streaking across his brow. Blood leaked between her fingers as she pressed against his wound. "You can't die," she whispered, her voice shaking. "Not after this. Not after sparing me." His lips curved into a faint smile. "Strange, hearing mercy from you." Her throat tightened. She wanted to speak, but no words came. She had fought all her life believing humans were monsters. But this man was bleeding out because he had chosen to protect her. Kayla tore fabric from her armor and pressed it hard against his side. He hissed in pain but did not push her away. "Stay awake," she said firmly, forcing her voice to steady. "I will not lose you." His eyes flickered, heavy with exhaustion, but his hand moved. Slowly, weakly, he reached for hers. His fingers touched her wrist, warm despite the blood. Kayla froze. Then, slowly, she let her hand rest against his. Hours passed. The night grew quiet again, broken only by the distant cries of carrion beasts, picking through the dead. Kayla worked tirelessly, binding his wound, searching the shadows for danger, listening for the return of her people. The human slept fitfully, his breathing shallow but steady. Kayla sat close, her broken spear across her lap, eyes scanning the darkness. But her mind was not on the shadows. It was on him. She remembered the first time she saw him, blade raised above her neck. She had waited for death. Instead, he gave her his hand. Why? The question gnawed at her, sharper than hunger. Why had he spared her when all others would have killed? She looked at him, this enemy who had become her shield. In his sleep, he whispered something soft. Her name. Her chest tightened. She had never told him her name. How did he know? Dawn came slowly, painting the sky with gray light. Kayla's eyes were heavy, her body sore, but she stayed awake. She could not afford to rest. The human stirred, his eyes opening. Pain flashed, in them, but also strength. He tried to sit up. Don't move, Kayla said sharply, pressing him back. You will tear the wound. He gave a small nod, breathing hard. After a long silence, he spoke. You should leave me. Her jaw tightened. No. They will hunt you, he said, voice faint but clear. If you stay with me, they will kill you too. Kayla shook her head. Her voice was soft but unbreakable. I will not leave you, not after what you did. For the first time, his eyes softened. Something unspoken passed between them. Something stronger than fear, stronger than war. But peace did not last. The sound of engines echoed once more. Across the ravines. Not many this time, but enough. The sharp voices of alien hunters carried through the rocks. They went this way. Find them. Kayla's blood ran cold. They had tracked her. The human struggled to rise, but Kayla pressed him down. You cannot fight. Then you must run, he said. Her grip on the spear tightened. Her heart pounded. She had a choice. Abandon him and live, or stand and fight against her own people. She looked at the man beside her, the one who had spared her life, who had fought his own kind to protect her, who now lay broken because of her choice to stand beside him. Her answer was clear. Kayla rose, her broken spear in hand, and stepped into the shadows where the hunters approached. I will fight, she whispered, for both of us. The ravine was quiet after the clash. Kayla stood guard, her broken spear in hand, her body trembling with exhaustion. The human soldier lay behind her, his face pale but alive. The hunters had retreated for now. Their tracks and voices faded into the distance. But Kayla knew they would return. They always returned. Her chest burned with fear. Not fear for herself, but for him. She turned back to the soldier. He tried to sit up, his hand pressed against the wound, at his side. His face was tight with pain, but his eyes were steady. They will not stop, he said. Kayla knelt beside him, her voice sharp but soft. Then neither will I. He looked at her for a long moment. Then slowly he nodded. By day they moved, through canyons and ruined ground, always hiding in the shadows. By night, Kayla built small fires to keep him warm, her eyes scanning the dark for pursuers. The man grew weaker each day, but he never complained. He walked when he could, leaned on her shoulder when he could not. Kayla bore his weight without hesitation. Sometimes, when the silence grew heavy, they spoke. She told him of her people's rituals, of the songs they sang before battle, of the stars they believed guided them home. He told her nothing of glory or honor. He spoke of quiet things, the rivers of his homeland, the way the wind smelled after rain, the laughter of his sister long ago. Kayla listened, her heart twisting. He was not the monster her people had painted. He was human, But he was more than that. He was alive in ways she had never known. One night they rested beneath a broken bridge. The fire burned low. Kayla sat near him, tending his wound again. Her hands moved gently, pressing cloth against his side. He watched her, his eyes half-lidded with pain but still sharp. "You should leave me," he whispered again. "Save yourself." Kayla shook her head, her voice firm. "I already chose." His lips curved into the faintest smile. He reached slowly and his hand found hers. Kayla froze. Her heart thudded. She looked at his hand, warm against her blood-stained fingers. Something unspoken passed between them. No words, no promises, just a silent bond. For the first time, Kayla felt the truth. She was no longer his prisoner and he was no longer her enemy. They were something else now, something more. But peace could not last. At dawn, the sound of engines shook the earth again. This time, Kayla heard more than just her people. She heard human voices too. She froze. Both armies. Both sides. "They hunt us together," she whispered. The human's jaw tightened. He pushed himself to his feet, swaying but standing tall. "Then they fear what we have become." Kayla gripped her spear. She knew he was right. Neither side wanted them alive. Not her people, who called her traitor. Not his, who called him betrayer. Both wanted them dead. The day became a blur of flight and fear. They ran through ruins, hid in caves, crossed rivers of ash. Everywhere they turned, enemies closed in. At one point, they found themselves surrounded by both humans and aliens at once. Soldiers shouted in two tongues, blades and guns raised. Kayla's heart pounded. She stood beside him, back to back, her spear ready. His blade shone, though his hand trembled with weakness. The air was thick, with hate, but in that moment Kayla felt none. She felt only trust. "Together," she whispered. "Together," he answered. The soldiers advanced. Kayla and the humans struck as one. The battle was chaos. Alien energy bolts burned the air, human rifles cracked. The ground shook with the force of explosions, but in the middle of it 2 figures moved like a single storm. Her spear darted, his blade slashed. Every strike flowed into the next as if they had trained side by side their whole lives. Enemies fell. Cries echoed. Blood marked the ground. But the numbers were too many. Kayla's breath grew ragged. The human staggered, his strength nearly gone. For every soldier they struck down, more came forward. At last, they were forced into the ruins of a stone tower. The walls shook with blasts as enemies closed in from all sides. Kayla pressed her back to his. Her chest heaved, sweat and blood dripping down her armor. "This is the end," she whispered. His voice was calm, steady, even as death closed in. "Then we face it together." The walls cracked. Dust rained down. Soldiers shouted outside, preparing for the final strike. Kayla looked at him. His face was pale, his body broken, but his eyes burned like fire. Something inside her shifted. She realized she would rather die with him than live without him. Slowly, she reached out and took his hand. He squeezed back, firm despite the blood and pain. No words were spoken. None were needed. Outside, the soldiers readied their final assault. Inside, 2 enemies stood hand in hand, ready to fight as one. The ruined tower shook under heavy fire. Dust rained down from cracked stone. Outside, human rifles and alien cannons thundered together. A storm of war aimed at the 2 inside. Kayla stood with her broken spear in hand, her back pressed to the man who had spared her life. His blade trembled in his grasp, blood still seeping from his wound, but his eyes were steady, burning with defiance. They were outnumbered, outgunned, hunted by both armies. And yet, Kayla felt no fear. Not now. She turned her head slightly, her voice firm despite the roar of battle. "They will not let us live." His reply was calm, sharp, unbreakable. "Then we die on our own terms." The walls cracked again. An explosion shook the ground, sending stone tumbling. Light cut through the smoke as soldiers poured into the tower's ruin. Humans and aliens alike stepped forward, blades, rifles, and cannons ready. Their commanders barked orders. "Kill the traitor! End the human!" Kyla tightened her grip on the spear. The man raised his sword, the steel glowing in the firelight. But then, he surprised her. Instead of charging into battle, he lowered the blade and placed it into her hands. Kayla froze, staring at him in shock. He looked at her with steady eyes. "Your choice. End me, or fight beside me." Her heart pounded. The weapon felt heavy in her hands. She thought of her people's voices, whispering, "Humans never show mercy." She thought of the night he could have killed her, but didn't. Her breath shook. She dropped the blade at his feet and raised her spear instead. Her voice rang out fierce and clear. "I fight with him." The soldiers roared in anger. Their blades flashed, their rifles fired. Kayla and the human leapt into the storm. Side by side they struck. His movements were sharp, each swing of his sword precise despite the pain. Her spear darted like lightning, cutting through steel and flesh alike. Together, they carved a path through the soldiers who called them traitors. Battle blurred into a storm of screams, fire, and blood. Kayla's body burned with wounds, but her spirit blazed hotter. The human's strength faltered, yet every strike he made was for her, not himself. The more they fought, the more the soldiers hesitated. Fear rippled through their ranks. This was no longer just a human and an alien. This was something greater. At last, the battlefield fell silent. Bodies littered the ruins. Smoke curled into the dawn sky. The few who remained, both human and alien, did not advance. They stared in awe and horror at the two who had stood against them all. Kyla's chest heaved, her spear dripping red. The human staggered, his blade barely held in his hand. The alien commander, the same who had once called her traitor, stepped forward. His voice shook with disbelief. "What are you?" Kayla's eyes burned. She looked at the human beside her, his face pale, his body broken, yet his spirit unbroken. Her answer was simple. "We are trust." The armies faltered. None dared move. None dared challenge them again, and then slowly, one by one, the soldiers began to lower their weapons, not in surrender, not in peace, but in fear of what they had witnessed. Two enemies, a human and an alien, had fought as one, stronger than either army. The war that night did not end, but a story began. Kayla fell to her knees, her strength gone. The spear slipped from her hands. She looked at the human who stood swaying, blood soaking his armor. He dropped beside her, his breath ragged. "You should have killed me," he whispered, a faint smile touching his lips. Her hand reached for his, firm despite her trembling. "No. You gave me something greater." He frowned slightly, his voice fading. "What?" Kayla squeezed his hand. Her answer was soft but clear. "Hope." The dawn broke over the battlefield. Light touched the ruins, painting them gold. The soldiers who survived would carry the story back to their people. They would whisper of the night when an alien and a human fought together. The night when trust broke the chains of hate. The night when mercy changed everything. And in the years to come, across worlds torn by war, their story would become legend. A reminder that sometimes the sharpest blade was not steel, but the touch of a hand that chose not to strike.